Nestled in the mist-shrouded Venetian Lagoon lies an island whispered to hold secrets as dark as the waters that surround it. This is Poveglia, a place where history and horror intertwine. For centuries, this sliver of land has borne witness to unimaginable suffering and death. From its days as a plague quarantine to its time as a troubled asylum, Poveglia has become a magnet for the curious and the terrified alike. Many believe the island's soil, soaked in the tears of the dead, has become a breeding ground for restless spirits. Join us now as we delve into the unsettling history of Poveglia. Our journey will take us from the first settlers who sought refuge on Poveglia's shores. We'll uncover the island's strategic importance during times of war. But it is the echoes of the Black Death that truly stain Poveglia's soul. Thousands upon thousands were brought to Poveglia to die, their bodies tossed into mass graves or left to rot in the open air. This is the legacy that cemented Poveglia's reputation as the island of lost souls. Yet the horrors didn't end there. Our story begins in the 5th century AD. The Roman Empire, once a mighty force, was crumbling. Barbarian tribes swept across Europe, leaving chaos and destruction in their wake. Terrified people sought refuge wherever they could find it. Some found their way to a small island in the Venetian Lagoon, Poveglia. These early settlers were drawn to Poveglia's isolation. Surrounded by the shallow waters of the lagoon, it offered a degree of protection from the turmoil engulfing the mainland. Life on Poveglia was simple, centered around fishing and farming. For a time, the island provided sanctuary, a haven from the storms of history. Centuries passed, and the population of Poveglia grew. The small island community developed its own rhythms of life, their days marked by the rising and setting of the sun over the tranquil lagoon. The horrors that would one day scar Poveglia's soul were still unimaginable in this time of relative peace. However, Poveglia's isolated existence could not last forever. In the 14th century, the winds of war swept across Europe once more. The Venetian Republic, a rising power in the Mediterranean, found itself locked in a bitter struggle with its rival, Genoa. The conflict, known as the War of Chioggia, would determine the fate of the region. Poveglia, strategically situated at the entrance to the lagoon, became a pawn in this larger game of power. Recognizing the island's importance, the Venetians fortified Poveglia in 1379, transforming it into an outpost to defend their beloved city. The inhabitants of Poveglia were relocated to the Giudecca, another island within the Venetian Lagoon, for their safety. Though Poveglia played a role in Venice's ultimate victory, it was a Pyrrhic one for the island itself. The once peaceful community was no more, its inhabitants scattered, their homes abandoned. Poveglia had become a military asset, its fate now tied to the whims of war and the ambitions of empires. The War of Chioggia marked a turning point for Poveglia. No longer a simple fishing community, it was now a place of strategic significance, a bulwark against potential invaders. But the conflict also foreshadowed the island's dark future. For Poveglia, war was just the beginning of its descent into terror. The 14th century dawned, but with it came a darkness that would engulf all of Europe. The Black Death, a plague unlike any other, swept across the continent. Carried by fleas on rats, the disease spread like wildfire. Cities became charnel houses, their streets littered with the dead and dying. Venice, despite its best efforts, could not escape the plague's grasp. Desperate to protect its citizens and its trade, the Venetian Republic took drastic measures. They turned to Poveglia, the once peaceful island, and transformed it into a lazaretto, a quarantine zone for the afflicted. Ships arriving from plague-ridden ports were diverted to Poveglia. Those suspected of carrying the disease were forced ashore. They were quarantined, their fate left in the hands of plague doctors, those masked figures who moved like specters through the island's makeshift hospitals. For many of those brought to Poveglia, hope died at its shores. The plague was a merciless killer, often claiming its victims within days. As the death toll mounted, the living were overwhelmed by the dead. Mass graves, hastily dug and overflowing, became a grim necessity. The air on Poveglia grew thick with the stench of death. The cries of the sick and dying mingled with the prayers of the desperate. The island, once a place of refuge, had become a nightmare realm, a living tomb where hope went to die. The very soil of Poveglia seemed to absorb the suffering, becoming saturated with the despair and terror of those who perished there. Centuries later, the echoes of this suffering still cling to Poveglia. Some say the island's soil is composed of as much as 50% human ash. The sheer scale of the death, the unfathomable suffering, has left an indelible mark on Poveglia. The plague years eventually subsided, leaving behind a trail of unimaginable loss. Poveglia, once a place of quarantine, stood silent. The island bore the scars of its grim past. The buildings, once used to house the sick and dying, stood empty, their windows like vacant eyes, staring out at the lagoon. But the island's story was far from over. In the early 20th century, Poveglia was repurposed. It was transformed into a mental asylum, a place to house those deemed unfit for society. Once again, the island became a repository for the unwanted, a place where the outside world could forget about its troubles. The asylum opened its doors in 1922. Patients, suffering from various mental illnesses, were brought to Poveglia, often against their will. The isolation of the island, once seen as a means of quarantine, now served as a way to keep the patients hidden, their stories contained within the asylum's walls. A sense of unease hung over the island. The weight of history, the echoes of the plague, seemed to seep into the very foundation of the asylum. The patients spoke of seeing shadowy figures, of hearing whispers in the dead of night. Was it the madness talking, or was something darker at play? During this time, physicians wore beaked masks, leather gloves, and long coats in an attempt to fend off the disease. Their iconic and ominous look is recognizable to this day. The reason behind the beaked plague masks was a misconception about the very nature of the dangerous disease. During that period's outbreaks of the bubonic plague, a pandemic that recurred in Europe for centuries, towns gripped by the disease hired plague doctors who practiced what passed for medicine on rich and poor residents alike. These physicians prescribed what were believed to be protective concoctions and plague antidotes, witnessed wills, and performed autopsies, and some did so while wearing beaked masks. The costume is usually credited to Charles Delorme, a physician who catered to the medical needs of many European royals during the 17th century, including King Louis III and Gaston d'Orléans, son of Marie de Medici. He described an outfit that included a coat covered in scented wax, breeches connected to boots, a tucked-in shirt, and a hat and gloves made of goat leather. Plague doctors also carried a rod that allowed them to poke or fend off victims. Their headgear was particularly unusual. Plague doctors wore spectacles, Delorme continued, and a mask with a nose half a foot long, shaped like a beak, filled with perfume with only 2 holes, one on each side near the nostrils. But that can suffice to breathe and carry along with the air. One breathes the impression of the herbs enclosed further along in the beak. Though plague doctors across Europe wore these outfits, the look was so iconic in Italy that the plague doctor became a staple of Italian commedia dell'arte and carnival celebrations, and is still a popular costume today. Venetians even dress as plague doctors during the city's carnival festivities. The mask had glass openings for the eyes and a curved beak shaped like a bird's beak, with straps that held the beak in front of the doctor's nose. They believed that disease was spread by miasma, a noxious form of bad air, and the beak was supposed to act as a face mask that filters out the bad air. Among the asylum staff, whispers began to circulate about the head doctor. He was a man of unsettling demeanor, his eyes holding a glint that spoke of both brilliance and cruelty. Obsessed with pushing the boundaries of medicine, he sought to unlock the secrets of the human mind, no matter the cost. The doctor saw the asylum's patients as more than just subjects. They were puzzles to be solved, experiments to be conducted. He performed lobotomies, often without anesthesia, believing it would calm the troubled minds in his care. He experimented with new drugs and therapies, heedless of the suffering he inflicted. Stories of the doctor's cruelty spread beyond the asylum walls. Fishermen, venturing too close to the island, claimed to hear screams echoing from the asylum tower. Nurses, leaving the island after their shifts, spoke of feeling watched, of seeing figures moving in the shadows of the abandoned plague wards. The doctor's reign of terror lasted for years. His experiments, shrouded in secrecy, continued unabated. The patients, trapped on the island, had no escape from his twisted ministrations. And the island itself, soaked in centuries of suffering, seemed to embrace the doctor's darkness, amplifying his cruelty. By the mid-20th century, the asylum on Poveglia closed its doors. The reasons remain shrouded in mystery, but rumors abound. Some say the patients, driven mad by the island's energy, revolted. Others whisper of a dark secret, a horrific discovery that forced the authorities to abandon the island to its fate. Whatever the truth, Poveglia stood silent once more. But the silence was a deceptive one. Fishermen, skirting the edges of the island, reported strange lights and unsettling noises. Locals whispered of seeing shadowy figures moving among the decaying buildings, apparitions that vanished like mist when approached. Poveglia had become a no-go zone, a place of dread and unease. The island's history, steeped in suffering and death, had seeped into its very essence. It was as if the land itself had become haunted, a magnet for the restless spirits of those who had perished within its shores. Paranormal investigators, drawn to Poveglia's dark allure, began to explore the island. Equipped with cameras and recording devices, they ventured into the decaying buildings, seeking evidence of the supernatural. And they were not disappointed. EVPs, those disembodied voices captured on tape, revealed whispers, moans, and screams, seemingly emanating from the walls themselves. One particular phenomenon became synonymous with Poveglia: the phantom bell toll. The asylum's bell tower, long since silenced, was said to ring out at odd hours, its mournful clang echoing across the lagoon. Some believe it is the spirits of the plague victims, crying out in their eternal torment. Others claim it is the doctor, driven mad by his own actions, forever pacing the tower and ringing the bell in his madness. Whatever the source, the bell's eerie toll sends shivers down the spines of those who hear it. It is a reminder that Poveglia's past is never truly gone, that the suffering endured on the island continues to resonate through time. As more paranormal investigators visited Poveglia, the stories grew wilder, more terrifying. Some reported being touched, scratched, or even pushed by unseen hands. Others claimed to have been possessed, their voices and actions taken over by malevolent entities. Photos and videos emerged, showing unexplained figures, orbs of light, and strange mists swirling through the island's decaying structures. Skeptics dismissed these accounts as hoaxes, tricks of the light, or the power of suggestion. But for those who believe, Poveglia is a place where the veil between our world and the next is thin, where the spirits of the dead walk freely. It is a place where the horrors of the past are not just remembered, they are relived. Today, Poveglia remains largely off-limits. The Italian government, recognizing the island's dark reputation and the potential dangers it poses, has restricted access. But this has done little to dampen the public's fascination with the island of lost souls. If anything, the restrictions have only served to make Poveglia even more alluring, a forbidden fruit that beckons to the curious and the foolhardy alike. Poveglia stands as a stark reminder of the darker side of human history. It is a place where suffering and madness have left an indelible mark, where the echoes of the past continue to haunt the present. And as long as stories of the plague, the asylum, and the doctor persist, Poveglia will remain a chilling destination for those seeking a glimpse into the abyss. Poveglia's grim reputation extends far beyond the shores of the Venetian Lagoon. The island's stories, steeped in suffering and echoing with the whispers of ghosts, have captivated the imaginations of people around the world. This fascination has seeped into popular culture, with Poveglia becoming a recurring character in books, television shows, and films. Paranormal investigators drawn to the island's dark energy have made Poveglia a regular stop on their televised journeys into the unknown. Cameras pan across the decaying buildings, capturing ghostly figures and unexplained phenomena, sending chills down the spines of viewers safe in their homes. Documentaries explore the island's history, piecing together the events that led to its haunted reputation. From the horrors of the plague to the unsettling stories of the asylum, these films delve into the darkest corners of Poveglia's past, leaving audiences both captivated and disturbed. Despite the restrictions, or perhaps because of them, the desire to experience Poveglia firsthand persists. The island's forbidden nature only amplifies its allure, making it an irresistible target for those seeking adventure, a brush with the unknown. or simply a chance to test their courage. Some attempt to reach the island by boat, navigating the treacherous waters of the lagoon under the cover of darkness. They come seeking answers, seeking proof of the paranormal activity that has made Poveglia infamous. Others are content to observe from a distance, their cameras clicking as they try to capture the essence of the island's haunting beauty. This unauthorized tourism, while discouraged, speaks to the enduring power of Poveglia's legend. It is a testament to the human fascination with the macabre, our desire to confront the things that frighten us, to peer into the abyss and see if it stares back. Poveglia stands today as a solitary figure in the Venetian Lagoon. Its buildings, once filled with life, now crumble under the weight of time and neglect. Nature, reclaiming what was once hers, has woven a tapestry of vines and overgrowth across the island's surface, obscuring the scars of the past beneath a veil of green. The silence of Poveglia is a heavy one, broken only by the cries of seabirds and the lapping of waves against the island's shores. It is a silence that speaks volumes, whispering tales of suffering, madness, and death. The island is a time capsule, frozen in a perpetual state of decay, a haunting reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring power of the past. Those who dare to venture near Poveglia often speak of a strange energy that permeates the island. It is a palpable sensation, a heaviness in the air that presses down on the soul. Some attribute this to the island's tragic history, the sheer weight of suffering that has unfolded on its soil. From its early days as a refuge for those fleeing barbarian invasions, to its role as a last resort quarantine during the horrors of the Black Death, Poveglia has borne witness to some of humanity's darkest chapters. The island absorbed the fear, the despair, and the agony of countless souls, leaving an indelible mark on its very essence. The stories of the plague victims, their bodies tossed into mass graves or left to rot in the open air, continue to haunt the island. The whispers of their suffering echo through the crumbling walls of the abandoned hospitals, a constant reminder of the fragility of life and the indiscriminate nature of disease. And then there are the tales of the asylum, a place where those deemed unfit for society were sent to live out their days in isolation and despair. The doctor, with his cruel experiments and unsettling demeanor, casts a long shadow over Poveglia's history. His presence, though long gone, still lingers in the island's memory, a chilling reminder of the capacity for human cruelty. Poveglia's story is a complex tapestry, woven from threads of tragedy, madness, and the enduring power of the human spirit. It is a place where the boundaries between fact and fiction blur, where history and folklore intertwine to create a chilling narrative that continues to captivate and terrify. Whether one believes in the paranormal or not, there is an undeniable aura of unease that hangs over Poveglia. It is a place where the weight of the past is palpable, where the echoes of suffering seem to emanate from the very walls. Poveglia stands as a stark reminder of the darker side of human history, a testament to the enduring power of fear and the lasting impact of trauma. It is a place that forces us to confront our own mortality, to acknowledge the fragility of our existence, and to grapple with the unsettling possibility that some wounds may never truly heal. The future of Poveglia remains uncertain. The Italian government, grappling with the island's dark legacy and the logistical challenges of its restoration, has yet to determine its fate. Some advocate for its preservation, arguing that Poveglia should serve as a memorial to the countless souls who suffered and died within its shores. Others believe that the island should be left undisturbed, a testament to the power of nature to reclaim even the most haunted of places. Still others argue that Poveglia could be repurposed, its dark past transformed into a brighter future. But for now, Poveglia remains frozen in time, a solitary figure in the Venetian Lagoon, shrouded in mystery and cloaked in an unsettling silence. It is a place where the past refuses to be forgotten, where the whispers of the dead continue to echo through the crumbling walls, and where the question of what truly lies beyond the veil remains unanswered. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to subscribe for more haunting from around the world.